Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you and to the entire planet from the beautiful, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. We are so very delighted and absolutely honored that you are joining us here today to help celebrate the power of stories. Stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us how strong families become when we read together. Whether you're joining us from your kitchen table, your classroom, or your car, we're so happy that you're here. We would be so very happy and so very grateful if you could help spread the word about reading with your kids and letting your friends and family know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, Amazon Music, Castbox, Player FM, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Two wonderful guests for you today. First up, Huda Al Marashi. She is here to celebrate Hail Mariam. And later in the show, Craig Holland joins us to celebrate his young adult graphic novel, Our Adventure with Corp Mascot. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by the books of Dr. Peter Cotton. Uh-oh. This is one of those stories that makes kids gasp, then giggle. Meet Fred the Snake. Fred is curious. Fred is adventurous. And unfortunately, Fred forgot to look both ways before crossing the road. Squish! But don't worry. This isn't a scary story. It's a hopeful one. And when Fred the Snake gets squished and mended, Fred wakes up in the hospital where kind doctors are ready to sew him back together. There's just one problem. They need a very special bendy thread, and it can only be found deep under rhinos in the wild jungle. So off goes Jungle Jim, who enjoys, so one supposes, hunting fierce rhinoceroses. He gets his thread, and Fred is mended. This delightful picture book is full of heart, humor, and just enough gentle suspense to keep kids leaning in and cheering when Fred gets mended. And here's something that we really love. Like I said, the book is written by Dr. Peter Cotton, a longtime medical doctor and teacher who has now turned his storytelling talents towards children's books. We had Dr. Peter on Reading with Your Kids, and he was an absolute joy. Thoughtful, funny, and clearly someone who understands kids and cares deeply about helping them feel safe and curious about the world. When Fred the Snake Gets Squished and Mended is the first in a wonderful series of Fred the Snake books, making it perfect for families who love characters they can return to again and again. So curl up, read together, laugh together, and remind kids that even when things go wrong, with a little help and a little kindness and a little bendy thread or two, things can get mended. Get your copy of When Fred the Snake Got Squished and Mended on Amazon or wherever you find great books. Join us right now from San Diego in California. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new middle grade novel. It's called Hail Mariam. Please welcome to the show, Huda Al Marashi. Huda, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
I'm delighted to have you on. I've been really looking forward to this conversation for a long time. As I understand it, Mariam is the only Muslim girl at her Catholic school.
Yeah, that means so much to me. I'm so happy to be here talking to you about this book as well. So much of Mariam's story is pulled right from my own life. So it's a story that's really close to my heart. She starts sixth grade at her local Catholic school. She's the only Muslim in her entire class. And her parents tell her, you might be the only Muslim your classmates ever meet, so you better be a good example. And that burden of representation is kind of the struggle that Mariam carries with her throughout the book.
Well, as somebody who went to I attended Catholic high school, and my kids attended Catholic school too. Hearing that, hey, you're representing the school. Yeah, and
yeah, right. Even the Catholic kids feel that because we got told that as well. When you go out in your uniform, you're representing the entire school.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty heavy. And
that is right.
Yeah, and especially being the only person representing your religion, that's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, it adds another layer to that.
Yeah. A lot of people listening, I think, might be surprised and even say to themselves, Muslim kids in Catholic schools, that's ridiculous. Only Catholic kids go to Catholic schools. And that's actually not true. I think I don't know if it's nationally, but I do know here in the Archdiocese of Boston that most of the, especially in urban areas, that most of the kids in Catholic schools are non-Catholic.
Yeah, and you know what's been so fun about this book sort of coming closer to publication is now I'm hearing from so many other Muslims on social media and in the comments say, hey, I went to Catholic school too. And it seems so many of our parents had the same thought process, the same idea that Catholic school would more closely mirror the values that we had at home. And also a lot of Muslim families are looking for academically rigorous programs, and Catholic schools do offer that as well.
Now, you are uniquely qualified because you were or are a Catholic school teacher.
Oh, actually, I'm not a Catholic school teacher.
Oh, I thought I read that in the information.
I went to Catholic middle school.
Okay.
Catholic high school, and then I kept going on to Jesuit university.
Ah, okay.
That's the lineage. That's the trajectory. So,
okay.
I wouldn't mind teaching in a Catholic school. I love them, but I've had the opportunity to speak at Catholic schools where even, many years later, there were Muslim children in the classroom, which was fun to see. And, the other fun aside is my editor. And what are the chances of that is a Muslim woman who went to Catholic school.
Very, very cool. Well, you and I share something. We're both Jesuit trained. I went to a Jesuit high school. And one of the things that was really cool at my Jesuit high school is that we were encouraged to learn about different faiths.
Right.
Yes. I read the Quran as in high school. I read the Bhagavad Gita. I can't remember how do you pronounce it.
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And in Jesuit university too, it was part of our graduation requirements was that you would take 3 courses on religion, but they didn't specify which religion. Mm-hmm. So I actually took classes on Islam with Islamic scholars at my Jesuit university. And, people wouldn't expect that, but I did have the opportunity to really dive into another tradition. And I went to Santa Clara University, and the religious studies department is incredible. I think it still is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The reason I mentioned it is because I think a lot of people have so many stereotypes. We hear Muslim and we think something. We hear Catholic and we think something. I was really amazed the first time I toured my educational magic show down south, and people were telling me, "Oh, you're Catholic. You belong to a cult," and I'm like, "Excuse me."
Right. Yeah.
But so I'm fascinated by religions and learning about different religions. The thing that fascinates me the most is not so much the differences, but the similarities that are found throughout most religions.
Right. And that's really so much of what I wanted to do with this book is I think we make assumptions about children that, religion is a conversation to save for later or they don't understand. But I think young people are really curious about religion. I think they are asking already lots of questions about religion to each other. And what I hoped to do with this was to spark a conversation between children and their parents. And offer this invitation to a more nuanced conversation about religion. Because I think sometimes we do children a disservice when we talk about things in very black and white terms with them. But like you said, the real takeaway as we get older is this beautiful overlap and similarity. And I wanted to invite, young children to the conversation to start seeing that now through the trajectory my main character goes through, that Mariam starts in that very rigid black and white worldview that I think so many young people have. And then through the challenges she experiences in the book, she learns that things are not quite what she assumes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about Mariam being sixth grader. So someone who's like 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And is thrust or placed into this environment where everybody has a different faith. Is Mariam wearing a hijab to school every day?
No, Mariam doesn't, and her mother doesn't. And that was just a choice that I made. When I have visited Catholic schools, I have met Muslim girls who are wearing hijab at school. So I don't think that there's any reason why that wouldn't have been welcome at school. But she just happens not to.
Yeah, yeah. And that's another thing. It's, again, stereotypes like, all Muslim women must cover their hair. Like, no, it's kind of like a choice.
Yeah, and it was also an opportunity for me to kind of show one of those gray areas in faith. And there is a point at the end of the book where her family is praying for something. Her family, her younger sister, is facing a health challenge. And the grandmother dangles at her mom, like, well, if you really want this prayer answered, maybe you should think about putting on the hijab. And Mariam overhears this. And Mariam is also struggling with that idea. And this idea, do I have to do something to get something? And I think that's a really complicated thing that I imagine all people of faith connect to. This idea of reward and punishment. Do I need to do something for my prayers to get answered? Are certain things a barrier to my prayers being answered? So that leaving that open allowed me to have that conversation between my characters as well.
Yeah. Boy, that would be an intense conversation for a family to have.
And it's a really real conversation. I know it's a conversation that many families do have, and many women are constantly negotiating. And like you said, there's that stereotype that, oh, you're a Muslim woman, you wear hijab. To people from the outside, they may not realize how much goes into that decision for so many women. What are they considering when they're making that choice? What are they weighing? What are they wrestling with? So the book just gives us a hint at that, but it is a really lived decision for so many people.
Yeah. You've written a lot for in different genres. What was it like writing this middle grade novel?
Yeah, I really got into writing from an adult space. I wrote memoir, and I wrote creative nonfiction, and I wrote essays, and really about a lot of the same topics. I've always been interested in immigration, bicultural identities, the Muslim American experience, and also an Iraqi American's experience. So those themes continue to show up in my work. But one thought that I had when I was on the road with my memoir is that talking to adults, a lot of their ideas about different communities were already shaped and formed. And it seemed either my book was affirming stereotypes they already had, or they already did not have them and they were willing to engage on a different level. And it really made me think about starting conversations earlier and younger if we really do want to lay a foundation for change.
Yeah.
And so my first foray into middle grade writing was I contributed a story to a collection called Once Upon an Aid. and that had 16 stories written by Muslims from different parts of the world about the Eid celebration. And then I joined 3 other Muslim women writing a really fun novel called Grounded, about 4 Muslim kids, and they're grounded at the airport and the adventure they go on to find a missing cat. And that was just a very purposefully fun adventure to kind of counteract the more serious stories Muslim children often see themselves represented in. And this was a purposeful pursuit of a Muslim joy in a story. And we've had a lot of fun with that book because we have seen it cross over and do the work that I was kind of hoping for. Because when we would go to book events with Grounded, it was just incredible to me to see, non-Muslim children really connecting and identifying with the protagonists. And that's what we need, right? That for me is where I think real stereotypes break down, is when you identify with a protagonist that is not like yourself, but you just connect on that human level of what you share in common with that protagonist. And then that kind of inspired me to try my own standalone middle grade novel, pulled from so many of the experiences that I've written about for adults, but now I wanted to gear that conversation to young readers.
Yeah. You mentioned that you've had an opportunity to go into schools talking about the book. What kind of and it's such a joy to be able to do that, to be able to go into a school and either talk about a book or present a magic show or any kind of presentation. And it's such an honor. I took it so seriously that a school would choose to carve out some time out of a very busy and full day to allow me to go and, in my case, play with the kids and hopefully give them a meaningful experience. The questions kids ask are always so neat. What kind of questions have kids been asking you about Hail Mariam?
Well, Hail Mariam isn't out yet, so I haven't done school events with Hail Mariam. But I will say the school events questions I did with Grounded inspired so much of Hail Mariam. And it was specifically one of the ones I had in an Islamic school. And the kids were asking me things like, what do people say about Muslims in not Islamic schools? That was fascinating to me because I had spent my whole life being an other. So to talk to a group of kids who hadn't had that opportunity to be immersed in the stereotypes and the prejudice and to know what's being pummeled at them was very interesting to me. They asked questions about, hey, did you know that there are people who speak Arabic but that are Christian? And that was also really fascinating to me because that is a big part of Hail Mariam as well, is that Mariam forgets that there are Arab Christians and her mom's best friend is Christian, but she just makes the assumption she's Muslim until she has this very embarrassing moment at church where she's asking the aunt, like, how do you know the priest at my school? And her mom says, Mariam, you do know that Auntie Sosan is Christian. So that is something that I think is very common among Arab children, is to forget that there are, that the Arabic language belongs to all people who speak Arabic. It's not, it doesn't belong to their religion.
Yeah.
And that question was really fascinating to me. And all those things made me realize is that children really, really are very deeply thinking about faith, religion, identity, and it's a conversation we need to be having with them.
Yeah. I had an experience once, and I'd be interested to get your take on it. One of the parents, my kids are very involved, especially through middle school and high school, very involved in church and at school. And at one point, they were both Eucharistic ministers. They would help in the celebration of Mass. And a parent came up to me and said, boy, you must be so proud of your kids, and they're doing this thing at the church. And I go, proud of them for lots of things that they're doing. It's wonderful, and I'm happy that they feel close and have this faith. And the woman said, "Yeah, I'm so scared. My daughter's going off to college next year, and college is where kids start asking questions about their faith." And she was so terrified. And I said, "You should celebrate, because kids should be asking questions about our faith. And if our faith doesn't hold up to the questions, maybe it shouldn't be our faith."
Right. And the questions are what we should be asking all along.
Mm-hmm.
And from the beginning, right, is asking the deep, hard questions. And it's not always about our faith in particular, right? But also the one thing that I hope to invite, and I hope we can wake people up, talk about and ask questions about the thing that religion is. Because religion is an institution created by people. Like, there are human hands in our faiths. And we, as followers, practitioners of certain traditions, need to be awake to the things that are, divine, non-negotiables, that we follow and believe with all our heart, and awake to the things that are crafted by a human hand that maybe deserve questioning, skepticism, and even possibly cause harm. And that we do not want to bring into our homes, and that we do not want to be passing on to our children, right? Because religion is the source of so many things. And what moves me the most is just how sincerely and deeply faithful people want to be good and to do good. But it can also, from that black and white thinking and that rigidity, create little boxes that not everybody fits into. And then we can make people feel not welcome, and we can make people feel excluded. And those are the things that I think we want to be awake to. And what I was hoping to show with Mariam, that she's learning that the compass may not be in what is wrong, but what is kind. And that our faith is something that is unkind.
You broke up when you started talking about the compass. Could you repeat that? Because I think it was pretty important for folks to hear.
Yeah, that Mariam is waking up to asking herself that perhaps the real question is not to ask what is right and what is wrong, but to look at things from a lens of what is kind. Our religions should not be driving us to do anything that is hurtful or harmful. And so, the idea is to always be dialed into the essentials of faith, of good faith, right? That's a question I think a lot of people in our country are asking themselves right now, because we see a lot of things in our policies that are coming from a place that's supposedly Christian, but do not mirror Christian values by any shape or form. And I would hope, it's a very deep hope, but that we can really make people aware that, hey, if you're veering into this territory where your faith is not inspiring you to generosity, to helping others, to kindness, to giving more, to charity, then there's something wrong with that belief you're, subscribing to.
Yeah, absolutely. Powerful conversations, I think, can spring up from Hail Mariam. And it seems like one of those books that, like a picture book, that you'd want to read again and again, just because I think there's a lot going on there that you might miss.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, I'm so, the question you just posed before with what that mom said is really so telling, right? Because if we are asking those questions from the very beginning, we never have to worry about our children going off to college and being exposed to different ideas. It makes our faith sturdier and more resilient, because we understand that our connection to the divine and whatever we have going on with our spiritual connection with God is totally separate from certain human institutions that we are absolutely required to look at with a critical lens.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that was one of, I've gotten myself into, well, not trouble. I've just gotten a lot of grief from time to time in different, when I question things in my church. And I'm very happy that was something that I learned to do at my Jesuit high school. They were
Me too, at my Jesuit university. Yes. Yes. I mean, they're really so good at teaching us to look at context, right? To put things into context. And no religion, we should never venture to understand any text, any religion without carrying a lot of reverence for the context in which it was revealed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, yeah, I think so very important. What's next for you? Are you going to stay in this middle grade lane?
I am. I am fortunate to be writing another book for Kokila. It will be another standalone literary middle grade novel. I'm not quite sure where I'm headed with it yet. It will not be a sequel. Mariam will not show up again. But again, I am definitely diving into these same issues about faith and understanding. I think that's a theme that has just been so present in my own life. I can't help, it shows up for my kids too. It shows up for my main characters. And it'll be present again.
I had a neat experience once, Huda. I was performing at an event, summer event, just at a playground, and it was a suburban community here in Boston. So I think it was safe to say that a good chunk of the kids were Christian. But 2 day camps came to the show, and one was a day camp of Jewish kids. They were there with their yarmulkes on, and then there was a group from a Muslim camp, and a lot of the girls were wearing hijabs, and we had a great time. And at the end of the show, the rabbi came up to me and he said, "Hey, teach the kids a magic trick." And I said, "Well, I don't usually teach 100 kids a magic trick." But we brought, so some of the kids from the community were there, and the kids from the Jewish camp and the kids from the Muslim camp. And I remembered a Jesuit tradition I learned called the examine, where at the end of the day, you look at everything that happened in your life and you think, where was God in that moment when someone cut me off? Where was God when the pizza burned? And so there's a neat trick where I can give the kids a deck of cards and they can deal them out into 4 piles, and at the end, on top of each pile is the king. And so I'm telling the kids about this tradition. You think about is your king there with you at the end of the day? And the kids reveal, and it's magic. Oh, look at the king's there on top of each deck. And I pointed to the kids and I says, the neat thing is we're here, and some of us are Christian, some of us are Jewish, and some of us are Muslim. I said, but the thing is, we all have the same king. We all believe in the same God. And that was really fun. It was fun for me because it was driven by the Spirit. It was like something that just came. Certainly could never have planned for that to have happened.
And what's so amazing about that, and what I hope I do through my work and in my books, is just to remind people that really truly is the legacy we had before. Mm-hmm. Before we had nation states, before we had borders, before we had wars, before we had, not that there was ever a time before we had wars, but our faiths are highly politicized, but there's a long-standing tradition of coexistence among our religious identities, long-standing tradition. And it is our legacy, and it is our history, and we have to fight to reclaim it and to not get caught up in the media cycle that's trying to tell us something different. going back to the kid who asked me, do you know that there are Arab Christians? Yes, there are
Right.
Arabic-speaking Christians, there are Arabic-speaking Jews, there are Arabic-speaking Muslims, and there always has been. And we have a much longer legacy of coexistence and friendship than the enmity and rancor are being sold right now. I don't think that is our true heritage. And like exactly what we're doing right now, when we get together and when we talk, it's so apparent. Everything, like you said at the beginning, when we first started talking, the similarities are so apparent that we share more than what divides us.
Yeah, absolutely. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Hail Mariam and also find out more about you.
Hail Mariam is going to be available on February 24th, where all major books are sold. And of course, we always try to plug and encourage everybody to support their independent and local booksellers. And you can find out more about me on my website, which is just my name, HudaAlMarashi.com. And you can find me on socials as well.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Hail Mariam. It's the new middle grade novel that will provoke lots of great conversations from our guest, Huda Al Marashi. Huda, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me. It was truly a pleasure.
Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by AspireDrinks.com. Hey, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted a little extra energy, but not the kind that makes your heart race or leaves you crashing an hour later? Well, that's exactly why I want to tell you about Aspire Drinks. You'll find them at AspireDrinks.com. Aspire calls itself a healthy energy drink, and honestly, that description really fits. Instead of loading you up with sugar or extreme caffeine, Aspire delivers a gentle, steady boost with 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea and guarana. That's about half the caffeine of most energy drinks, enough to help you stay focused without the jitters or the crash. It's also zero sugar, 0 calories, and 0 artificial additives, which makes it a great choice for parents, teachers, and anyone trying to make healthier choices while still getting things done. And get this, it actually tastes great, light, crisp, and lightly sparkling, with flavors like sweet cherry, raspberry acai, mango lemonade. That's what I love. No heavy aftertaste and easy on the stomach. Aspire is packed with B and C vitamins, biotin, and ginger. And it's vegan, gluten-free, keto-friendly, really designed for real life. And just for Reading with Your Kids listeners, you can get an exclusive discount of 20% off. That's the highest discount available when you shop at AspireDrinks.com and use our promo code READ. That's READ at AspireDrinks.com. Healthy energy done right. Hey, my friends, you know one of my favorite parts of the day is story time. There's just something magical about snuggling up with your kids, opening a great book, and escaping into an adventure together. And let me tell you, that moment becomes even more magical when you're curled up in the softest, coziest bedding you've ever felt. That's why I'm so excited that CozyEarth.com is supporting Reading with Your Kids. Their bamboo sheets, comforters, and pajamas are unbelievably soft, naturally breathable, and temperature regulating, which means no more sweaty nights or chilly toes. Right now, Cozy Earth is offering Reading with Your Kids listeners an unbelievable and exclusive 41% off their entire site. That's right, you heard me right, 41% off. So go ahead, create your own cozy reading nook, wrap yourself and your kids up in something comfy, grab your favorite bedtime book, and turn story time into the best part of your day. Head on over to CozyEarth.com and use the promo code READ at checkout to save 41%. That's CozyEarth.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from the great and cold state of Maine. Our guest is here today to celebrate his YA graphic novel. It's called Our Adventure with Corp Mascot. Please welcome to the show, Craig Holland. Craig, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Doing well, my friend. Craig and I met at most recently at the KidCon in Portland, Maine, And I really like the Kid Cons. It's a fun event.
Yeah, I do too. I've known the person who runs it, Emily Drew, and she's been doing it for about 10 years now. And I met her, I think early 2016. She's like, yeah, like we're having an event. And she kind of explained it to me. And then I saw her a little later, like in the year, she goes, oh, yeah, we sold out where we went. And it is it's been good to see her grow. And it's good because it's straight for kids. Like they're kid events, it's not like other Comic Cons where there's like other panels and stuff. It's like kid activity, like some people where it's like, oh yeah, like stuff that was like 30, 40 years ago. It's like, no, it's like activities straight for kids to bring their parents and stuff.
Right.
And my wife and I, we have friends who have kids that are like at that age. So it's nice to see them to go there. It's like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were here. So
yeah, no, it's really fun. They do 2 a year, one in Nashville, New Hampshire, one in Portland, Maine. And we went to both of them last year. And yeah, like it's just a really fun, family-friendly event. I know that a lot of Comic Cons aren't so family-friendly.
Yeah.
You know, so it's nice that this is very, very kid-friendly.
No, I agree. And I used to do the one because I used to live in New Hampshire before I moved to Maine. And I did the Nashville one. I like that just, again, for the kids, but also I like the layout of it where it's kind of like a castle. And I can't remember if she put it as like a tagline or what it was, but like, oh, it's like the castle. I'm like, I don't know what she means by that, but like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is like multiple rooms. Like you feel like you're out like on a bit of an adventure too. So, and I mean, it's one of the ones I like doing just because it's fun. It's like, it's one day. It's like, okay, everybody's happy to be there. And it's just good to see like kids light up. And there are some people who come up like, yeah, like my kid bought from me last year. They wanted to make sure you're here. I'm like, oh, I feel honored. And my wife goes, do you remember them? I'm like, well, now I do. So
Craig, I did educational magic shows at schools for 40 years. And in the summertime, it would be a library or recreation center or whatnot. My son, when he was a teenager, came out with me one day to kind of help out. And I arrived at this summer camp, and a little kid comes running out, goes, oh, Jedley, oh, do you remember me from last year? And I'm like, yeah, dude, look, you got so tall. I can't believe it. Yeah, I grew a lot at this. And we just went back and forth, and he ran back inside. And my son looked at me and goes, you don't really remember him, do you? I goes, what difference does it make? I just made that kid's day.
Right.
You know?
No, I totally get that. And it'll throw me off when like I'll see people from like other shows. Like I did an author event. Like this year I did something different where I did like author event and like non-Comic Con shows. Like I did Art in the Park in Portland. There was one in Winthrop, Maine that I did, and there was an author event. I can't remember where it was, or maybe that was Winthrop, but the whole year kind of blended in. But there was one where it was at the author event, and someone came up to me with like, yeah, we bought your book at the Maine Author Festival, and and we had a chat for a bit. My wife was with me. She goes, do you remember them? Like, well, it took me a second. I was like, yeah, I do remember that now. Like, they were kind of like on the edge, and then they like, oh, they loved it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was like one of the only people there with a coloring book and a comic book. So I'm like, oh, like that makes sense. I would stand out. So.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm happy we're having this be, and we're going to talk about our adventure with Corp Mascot more as we go on. But we do have a lot of authors and aspiring authors on the show, and one of the things that, you know, I've kind of stressed over the years of doing Reading with Your Kids is that when you decide to become an author, you're becoming the CEO of a small business, and I know artists, whether they're visual artists or authors or performers, they hate to think of themselves as a business, as, oh, no, I'm an artiste and I don't want to, deal with that stuff. But if you don't deal with it, ain't no one going to find out about your stuff. Yeah,
that probably the way I look at it best is there's a Three Stooges joke. It's like blink and you miss it, where there's one episode where they're like, I think it was one where they like Curly becomes a boxer, Larry plays the violin to get him going, and Mo goes, from now on we're a corporation. Like, I think of that every time. Like, anytime I have to do like content creation, update my website, filing my taxes, and like, looking for new shows and like looking for like printing and all that. Like, I'm like, from now on I'm a one-man corporation, so I got to do it. So
yeah. Mo Larry the cheese.
No, Limboiga.
So it's important to get out there to these author events and Comic-Cons if your book fits in, and just get your name out there so people, and you never know. I've told this story before. I was out at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. We do events and we bring books out with us. And this woman who just did not fit in. It was a Sunday afternoon. It was all families there, but this woman was a corporate suit. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, what's this one? And she's staring at my booth. And then she comes over and she goes, hi, I saw the iHeart logo. And I go, yeah, we were nominated for the iHeart Radio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award. She goes, oh, I'm the vice president of iHeart. And I go, oh, here in Chicago. She goes, no, the universe. And I'm like, oh, is it okay? We got your logo? And she goes, yeah, that's fine. But she came over and she said, this book caught my eye. Tell me about this book. And the author had just been on. I told her about the book, and she said, I need to get in touch with the author. I have a film production company. I think I'd like to option this. So
Wow.
I connected them together. I have no idea where it went from there, but you never know what could happen.
No, never. Like I mentioned last year, I started doing like non-Comic-Con shows just because I'm like, let's branch out a little bit. Like I did Art in the Park, and there's one, like, I can't remember where it was, but it was like an outdoor event, not something I typically do. And I had like my prints, like I have like comic prints and stuff like that, like fan art, original drawings, and I have my books. And usually when I do Comic-Cons, like people look at my prints and like get them in that way, and I kind of like talk to them, see where they go. And like it was weird because like those shows, like they went right to my books. So like, oh, what's this? So I'm like, okay, like well, let's talk about this first. So I didn't have to like segue, like, hey, here's this print of like Kermit and Fozzie as Jay and Silent Bob from Clerks. Like, oh, you guys went for the books. Okay, that's an easier pitch, or not easier, but like, okay, I got to pivot a little bit.
Yes, yes, yes. So let's talk about the book, Our Adventure with Corp Mascot. Tell us about the characters and the situations we're going to find.
Yep. So this book, not product placement or anything like that, but so pretty much the premise of it is it goes from his perspective. So I'm really bad with naming things, like CMS, Corp Mascot. Obviously a play on corporate mascot, like all the 90s gaming logos and all that. So basically it's from his perspective. Like it's from when his player one got him when he was like a kid. And of course, like, it's in 3 sections. The first section, like he plays them, they become best friends. Like they're inseparable. Like he goes through like hard times. He kind of looks at them like, he's like, wow, like we're becoming like a bond. And then he gets other games too. And like he still kind of goes to him and plays him. And then the second chapter is when he gets a new console that doesn't play like his game. So he kind of gets left in the dust. And like, it's kind of like Toy Story in a way where he gets older, he kind of leaves him in the dust. And he's like, well, maybe he'll come back to me. And then, it, gets a little bit older. And the third section is when he like gets really, the player one gets older, and it's like, okay, like what's going on? Like, where is he, kind of thing. So it's kind of like a coming of age story. Like, I don't want to say it talks about nostalgia, but like, it's like, oh yeah, like, what happened? Like the video game character not understand, like, people grow and move on and stuff like that. So, I kind of wrote it for a few different reasons. Like one, it was kind of based off a slam poem I did in college, but I kind of wrote it because when I go to conventions, it would be something where like a parent would go to bring their kid, like, oh, I remember this thing when I was a kid. And like he would talk about it, or the parents would talk about it with their kids. So like, it's like that kind of like, oh, I remember like when I went through a rough time, like this thing got me through. It was kind of like from kind of like, I don't want to say Woody or Buzz, but like kind of from like their perspective in a way. So it's kind of like, oh, you kind of think like, oh yeah, like I remember when I was a kid, I used to play like, Tecmo Bowl, or I used to play like Mega Man or something to get through hard times. So that's kind of what I wanted to do with it. It does have a happy ending. I'm not going to spoil it. But it's one of those things where like, that's kind of like, as I got older, I'm like, yeah, I transitioned because I started doing conventions when I was 24. I'm going to be 34 this year. Like I transitioned from when I was like, oh yeah, I'm still kind of young, to like, okay, I kind of see like there's that disconnect from like the younger generation. Not disconnect, but I'm like, I go to a Comic-Con now, I'm like, I don't know what half the stuff is anymore. But
well, I just realized this from watching some clips on social media. Your birth year starts with 19, so you grew up with the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I think the meme of like, oh yeah, when like they check their ID, like, oh, it's a 19, you're obviously old enough. And that happened to my wife and I were one of our anniversaries where like they looked at like her or mine, like, oh, we saw the 19, you're fine. And it's like, oh God, that does happen.
Well, I'm old enough to have known people who had 18 before their birth year. So,
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm very, very old. But yeah, it's interesting. We grow attached to characters that we find in books or games or TV shows, and it must have been fun kind of thinking and looking at the world through the perspective of this forgotten character.
Yeah, because like I said, when I did it as a poem initially, I think I wrote it a little differently, where it's more like it wasn't like as involved in this. Like I eventually adapted to a 5-page comic for one of my illustration classes, where I think it had to do with like it was like an old like character, like the character age, but like, oh yeah, like I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It was I have to look back now, but it was a lot different, where it was like more of a snapshot, like, oh, I'm gonna play this and then put it away kind of thing. Where this, it was kind of like, yeah, like what would they think, like there's a section like when the kid has bad grades, like, oh, he gets frustrated and like he just plays it, and like, or like if other bad things happen or if other good things happen, it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, or they're bored or something like that. So there's a little line where it was from like a clip I saw on YouTube where a kid spent an entire summer learning to play Mario World blindfold. And I was like, that's funny. Where like, and they play it, and he's like, yeah, there's that one time you try to play me blindfolded, and it's just like he's just going into complete chaos. Like, I think I can find it really quick, but I was like, yeah, that'd be funny. And then, like, sure enough, it's like, no, we don't want to do that. Of course I can't. There we go. Like, oh yeah, like we tried playing blindfolded, and then this happened. Like all chaos ensued. So it was kind of like, yeah, it was interesting to think like they wouldn't understand the concept of like growing up or like potentially moving on to other things that they wouldn't. Because I was talking to my boss and coworker today where he has a son that's around like 9 now, and he's like, yeah, like is he into Pokemon? Is he into sports? Like, oh, he's into sports. And we joke like, yeah, it's kind of funny, like, you know, the things you like at one point, they move on. Like, oh, why was he into Pokemon? And it's like he just didn't get it. I'm like, yeah, I moved from Pokemon to this to that. I'm like, well, how would the Pokemon cards think if they like, why did he move on? So
yeah. Do you have fun kind of just musing like this? Like I noticed a lot of your illustrations on your website kind of have that kind of monster feeling. You ever draw something and think, I wonder what this guy is all about?
Yeah, so that happens a lot. So like there was an illustrator, I think it was Chris Van Allsburg. I believe he did. Someone's gonna be like, no, that's not his name. But the guy who did like, you know, Polar Express and like Jumanji and all that. Like he came to my school a couple, like when I was in college, and he talked about like kind of that similar, like he would kind of develop a story, like he'd do an illustration, like, okay, what's the story behind this? So it kind of like engaged you, where like a lot of these characters I just doodle ones at conventions or bored, and it's like, oh, what's the story behind this guy? And it's like, well, this, and this. So it's kind of fun where like you kind of go backwards, like you kind of have the ending, but like how did we get from the beginning essentially? So it's kind of like, well, what would this be and that be? So it's a fun, like, I don't want to say I like playing with puzzles, but I kind of like looking like, okay, how do I connect the dots here? Like the little, like the make a giraffe out of this, like connect the dots thing. So.
Hey, when you're at a Comic-Con, you said you're doodling. Do you ever see somebody in the crowd and go, yeah, I can have fun doodling this guy?
It's funny you mention that. So like I'll flip-flop between writing and drawing sometimes, like depending on what my mood is. And there's one comic I'm actually working on. It's called the Banana Man Slayer. So there was one convention I did years ago. It was a 3-day convention, and usually with 3-day conventions, like the biggest one I've ever done is Rhode Island Comic Con. Even that, the Friday was kind of slow. So Friday, it's just like you're just sitting there and nothing's happening. And this Friday, again, we're all sitting at our tables, and we can hear like maracas playing the entire time, like steel maracas, and like this big venue. And like, of course, when there's like a lot of people there, you don't notice it as much. But like the fact that it was like not very packed, and it was a guy in a banana costume like shaking the maracas, and like he kept coming around, and like he didn't go down our album. Like, oh my god, he's doing it again. And I made a joke like, yeah, if he comes down this way, I'm gonna punch him, you know, just jokingly. And like every time when they faintly hear, people just kind of smirk at me. And I kind of did exactly what I mentioned earlier. Like I just drew like a comic of me punching a banana man, and I drew other banana men, like different kind of like looks and stuff. And I'm like, oh no, I was gonna do a sequel to this, and I'm like, no, I'm getting hooked on this. And then it turned into, okay, I can't turn back now. Like I'm like literally the whole weekend I was just doodling this. Okay, I got to develop this into a story somehow.
Well, it's amazing where story ideas come from. And one of the things I love to ask author illustrators is what comes first, the story or the pictures? And it sounds like for you, it's pictures.
Yeah, like because even the way I've been making my comics, like I have another one where it's a coloring book. I usually start with the cover first, like okay, like how do I want to like summarize this, and then I'll kind of work from there. Like okay, I have like the baseline, and then I'll kind of like iron out the details from there. So that seems to work for me. That way I can have like a visualization. Like, okay, this is gonna be a book one day, so I know like hey, this is the over image. I'm gonna like work out the details from here versus like. I think if I did it the opposite way, it'd be kind of like less of like a linear path because I'm very like linear, like when I tried to like do comics and play games and such like that. So, or even read a book, I'm like, okay, beginning, end. There's no like tangential direction. So.
Yeah. We love families reading together, and I know young adult graphic novels are not something that people automatically think of. Yeah, family cuddled up on the couch reading the young adult graphic novel together. But I think this sounds like a great book that can be co-read, and families coming together to chat about it on their way to soccer or Comic-Con. What kind of conversations do you think families could have if they're reading Our Adventure with Corp Mascot?
This is something I kind of went through, like when I was like, in my teens, early 20s, and I'm like revisiting things from my childhood where like, hey, that didn't hold up as well, or hey, that held up better than I thought it would. The kind of perspective, like, oh, the kid's gonna understand like one thing, like, oh yeah, I understand the character is sad because he's not playing with him anymore. And then, as someone who like the parent like knows like the other side of it, like, oh yeah, I went through all that and I forgot like I play with this thing or that thing. So it's kind of like that's kind of one way I try to pitch it. Where like, hey, if you are a kid, you like A to B story. Where you're an adult, it's like, oh hey, like I get the context of it more. So. Yeah. So that way it's kind of like then they can bond over like things that they had like growing up, like whatever it may be. So I can only imagine when people, kids and adults bond over now, like between parents and stuff. But yeah, like or like just movies or just anything like that, where it's like, hey, I remember this when I grew up, and like maybe you'd like it, and opens up a different avenue for them. So
yeah, as you were talking, I'm thinking a parent with a kid reading young adult graphic novels. Is probably feeling a little bit like your character. It's, when our kids are younger, we're the most important people in our kids' lives. And as they grow, they're supposed to spread their wings and separate us from us a little bit. And it's a very healthy thing to do. But it also, it's kind of a bummer for parents. Hopefully they respond well and say, okay, that's, we'll come back together. They'll play with me again someday.
Right. Yeah. I didn't even think of that, but like, again, like it doesn't even have to be like an object. It could be like a person or it could be like just anything really. So, and I'm kind of interested you brought that up because I remember, I had a few coworkers who had like kids that were probably like at the time, like 10, 11 going into their teens. And they mentioned that like, oh yeah, like my kid, he's kind of like, or they're kind of like veering off a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, like I wouldn't even think of that. Like, oh, that's things that would have happened. But then again, when I was a kid, I didn't think of that. But when my parents were like, oh, he's at that age where he's off doing his own things. So
yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. And as parents, we need to support them. Hey, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Our Adventure with Corp Mascot and find out more about you and see some of your art.
Absolutely. So to find, you can order, so if you go to my website, craighollandillustration.com, obviously there's my portfolio. There are links to my socials on there. You can order a copy of the book through Big Cartel. It's through me. If you want to email me, that's fine. I'm at a lot of New England conventions. You can find my artwork on Facebook is Craig Holland Illustration, but like Instagram, I'm still going to call it Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky. It's going to be C Holland Art or Cholland Art. I keep it really simple because I forget all this crazy stuff. That's pretty consistent. for my book, if you want to follow this, I do have a Facebook and Instagram for it. I believe the Facebook is the title Our Adventure Court Mascot. On Instagram, it's Court Mascot Book. Sometimes I kind of vary what I do. Sometimes I do reels of like the book. I do sometimes I do artwork for it. Like I did there was a point where I did like different like cover homages, like this Mario one from a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, yep. We see, court mascot kind of in imitating.
Yep. Because I was like, oh yeah, I'm in a mood where I want to do like homage covers. So like I do like that. I do video game pickup sometime where I'm like, hey, like this is what I picked up kind of thing. So I kind of varied a little bit, but like when I did the Kickstarter a couple years ago, I had all this content for the book, and I'm like, well, I gotta kind of vary it up. But yeah, that's where you can pretty much find me. Yeah, and like I said, if you want to message me, if you don't feel comfortable with the Big Cartel, I mean, you can like message me, email me, what have you. So,
Okay.
And you get cool stuff. You get a little bookmark, and this little guy right here, and then get one of these guys too. So
Great. All right. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of a young adult graphic novel. It's called Our Adventure with Court Mascot. Our guest has been Craig Holland. Hey, Craig, thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. Well, join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile, gave you something to think about, please share the link to the show with someone you love. Write a 5-star review, and of course, please subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, @JedlyMagic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website is readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Huda Al Marashi. Please be sure to check out Hail Mariam. And Craig Holland, please be sure to check out Our Adventure with Corp Mascot. I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Jackson Santolaro. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.